eventually you got to just do the thing, right? I am so happy to finally be able to announce Live It, Don't Dream It. With me, Scott Tavlin. The crazy thing about this, am I bleeding? Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh. Way to start the episode. Whatever. It doesn't matter because we're not going to let things get in the way. Here's what's happening. So, to be completely transparent with you, for at least 4 years, I have dreamt of creating my own podcast, of having a place that I could share what's going on in my life where you and I could grow together. And that's the entire point of what this is going to be about. It's taking the things that we continue to say we're going to do, the things that we say we're eventually going to get to, our dreams. And this is going to be the place where we finally decide that enough is enough. We're going for it. We're going to do the thing. Because at the end of the day, you and I, we get one chance to live out this life. Now we're going to decide what we're going to do with it. We're going to work on tools, strategies. We're going to get really good on working on ourselves. We're going to get experts on here. We're going to make sure that we are doing everything in our power to get the most out of this life, the one life that we deserve. So why now? Because for the past 4 years, I've only come up with excuses of why I haven't done this. And maybe you've been in the same boat where you have an idea, you get all excited about it, it continues to sit in the back of your head, and then you have something that comes up and it becomes your first excuse. Well, I don't have time in the day to work on that project, or I'm going to get to that, just not right now, I'm not ready. In my case, I have come up with the excuses for years that I haven't had enough information, that I haven't had enough time, that I'm not sure really what I want to talk about. But the truth is, I always have. I've always known that in my heart, I've always wanted to have this space about growth, about developing the lives that we want. And that stems from a place that we're going to get to in later episodes. But what I really wanted to talk about today is why that hasn't happened. Why are we deciding now in 2024 when this has been a dream since 2019? And the truth is because of fear. I'm sure this is something that you can relate to as well, where you know that idea, that one thing could turn everything around. And maybe it's just something you want to do, but behind all the excuses, behind the reasons we tell other people, and I've done this so many times where somebody would say, hey, when are you going to make that podcast? Hey, when are you going to try out speaking? Hey, when are you going to work on that career that you've been talking about doing? And I've always come up with excuses. But the reality is it's fear. The fear that lies in I'm not good enough. The fear that pops out in that what if I get discovered and it's actually been a complete fraud this entire time. See, if this is the first time you've ever seen me, heard me, even noticed that I've lived on this planet, a little background about who I am is I am a radio host. It's been my career for the past 6 years. It is my first love of a career. It's been the thing that has just completely fulfilled my life to the absolute most. And what's crazy about going into radio is that was something that I never even imagined doing growing up. I went after it once I discovered and walking through a studio that this is where I'm supposed to be. But the crazy thing is with doing radio is even though I talk every day in the radio station, there was still fear about doing this. Because in a weird way, and maybe you felt this way before too, is this is all on me. I don't get to rely on the background of a station that's already doing well. When I first got into radio, I really got to lean into people that were really talented, and that helped me become really talented. And so the fear, honestly, has always been if I step into this world, if I go out on my own, if I create my own podcast, if I create my own projects, if I create another career, will I all of a sudden be found out that I'm actually not as good as people or myself think I am? Now, I've always strived to be the very best I could, not just for me, but for the people around me. In this career of radio, I've been able to so graciously build a community with you, especially if you've been in that community for years, where I went from an intern to a full-time employee to a full-time radio host, becoming the best radio host in Tampa Bay based off of your votes. which is just mind blowing. And that's the hardest thing when you face fear is you got to look that in the face and say, even with all of that, are you still as good as you think you are? And what I've really been processing lately is getting to know what that fear really means, getting to know where that fear really came from. This is what I want to talk about today because it's the one place that we need to start. Because behind all the excuses, all the reasons, all the delays, all the hesitations, it stems in fear. Think about it. Take a second to just think, what is the thing that you've always thought about doing? Now dig a little deeper beyond that excuse, beyond the hesitation, beyond not having time. What does it really come down to? What is that fear? I want to start with this because I've recently acknowledged a fear in my life that has continued to hold me back, and I wanted to share it with you because maybe this resonates with you too. I've always had this fear of not being enough or not being loved or being left behind. And I didn't realize what this fear was about. Whether it was starting this podcast or putting myself out there to create my speaking career, I always had this fear that what if I do it and people don't actually like what I'm saying, or people don't actually accept me into the group, or people don't want me there. And I just had to continue to wrestle with this idea of, Scott, why is this such a fear? And within this past year, I finally got down to the root of it. I finally discovered where this fear stems from. And I realized that this fear has been living with me for nearly, at this 20 years. 20 years. This one fear has continued to drive decisions, has continued to drive where I go in life, and has continued to stop me from doing things that light me up. And before I get to the fear, I want to talk about this for a second, because doing this, speaking on stages, having my own radio show, having a place where I can help you and I can help myself grow to living the life that we truly deserve, the one that we love, the one that we aspire to accomplish, that is what lights me up. To be completely honest, I can't stop thinking about that. I think about helping people change their lives. I think about me changing my own life every single day. But this one little fear has continued to sit on my shoulder and whisper in my ear that you don't have the time, that you're not good enough, that you don't have enough information, you don't have it all figured out yet. So why would you start? And I finally realized that fear, that started in the 4th grade for me. The fear of not being enough, not being loved, scared to be left alone. That started in 4th grade for me, where there's a game that at the time my friend used to start. At the time he was my best friend. And this is in no way having anything ill-willed against that person. We were kids. But I needed to realize where this fear actually stemmed from. Because in the 4th grade, one of my best friends, I put in quotations, used to play a game with the entire class where they would just have days and they would decide not to be Scott's friend for the day. Ignore Scott. Act like he doesn't exist. If he tries talking to you, ignore him and walk away. Act like he's invisible. You can't even see him. And it wasn't just one day. It would be random days throughout the week, random days throughout the month, where it was just as if Scott didn't exist. And you know as well when you're growing up that those are the most important things as a child. To have a group of friends that you can trust. To have a group of people that you know won't abandon you. Have a group of people that love you. And I realized that fear has been the one fear that has held me back constantly. Is that one 10-year-old that is just so scared to be left back. That is so scared to be looked at but not seen. At that time period of my life, I was dealing with so much insecurity, wearing glasses, having acne, not feeling liked and accepted, feeling like I was overweight, quote unquote, husky. And now on top of that, the entire friend group that I thought I had would have days where they thought I didn't exist. And recently when I discovered that fear, I've had to just take a step in talking to my younger self. I've had to take a step back, go back in time, and talk to my younger self and let them know that that is no longer a thing you need to be afraid of. See, if you followed my journey for so long, it's easy to see me on the outside on stages, getting rowdy, getting all everyone excited. But the truth is, in front is all these accolades, these awards, this crazy energetic dude that just wants to be a good soul, good energy, help other people. But behind all of that was this scared 10-year-old that was scared if he stepped out of the lines that were given to him, that was scared that if he decided to just go ahead and do something on his own, he'd be left alone again. I had to sit down with that one 10-year-old, my younger self, and let him know it's okay. I had to let him know that what happened wasn't okay. And it was okay to be scared then. It was okay to not want to go and be on your own, because at that age, you shouldn't want to be alone. You needed to be cared for. You needed to be loved. I needed to let that younger self know that it never meant he wasn't enough. That people play cruel games and people do things that aren't nice and people will turn their back on you, but that never has a reflection on who you are. That is a reflection on who they are. And you've always been enough. From that moment to this moment, and every moment going forward, you have always been enough. And now it's so powerful to realize that you have people that have your back through anything. See, when fear pops up that we won't be loved or we'll be abandoned, and those are the two most common fears, we have to remind ourselves to look around and realize that we actually do have people that will always stay by our side, that will always support us, and that will always love us. So one of the most powerful things you and I could do is take a second to acknowledge that fear. That was the first thing I did, is I acknowledged that fear of being abandoned, that fear that I wasn't enough. Acknowledge it. It's okay. Say it out loud. Because I have this belief that when you acknowledge the fear, when you say it out loud, and that's why I'm doing it right here, right now. When you say it out loud, you take away its power. When you say it out loud, you're able to actually see it eye to eye, and you realize that that fear is not as big and scary and real as we've made it out to be. But it becomes so big and scary when we keep it deep down inside, because we're scared that if we show this fear to other people, people may judge us. People may think we're weird. But the reality is we all are dealing with it. The truth is we all have these fears. And when we're able to actually acknowledge it, put it out into the world, you're going to notice that the person next to you, the person across from you, the person that's been living with you has the same exact fear. And so I say this, because this fear has held me back for 4 years on doing something that lights me up inside, doing something that I know I was meant to do. I can't go to sleep at night without thinking of having this space, of speaking on stages, of helping people change their lives. I can't help myself from thinking about it, so I can't let fear stop me from living out who I'm supposed to be. And you can't either. So today we're kicking this off by acknowledging that fear. Take a moment. What is the thing that you're truly scared of? Where did it stem from? Does it still hold power till today? And once you acknowledge that fear, honestly, thank it. Thank that fear, because at a certain time in your life, it protected you. That fear popped up to keep you safe. And so to that 10-year-old Scott, who was so scared to stand out, be left alone, not have friends, not feel loved, thank you. Thank you, fear, for keeping me safe in that moment. And once you thank it, it's time to let it go. So dear fear, the one that has continued to try to protect me, you no longer need to be with me. I know I'm enough. I know I'm loved. And I know I'll be okay. You have served such a crucial role, but I no longer need you. And the truth is that fear is always going to be with you and I. Fear is always going to be a part of our life because let's face it, it keeps us alive. Fear is the reason why we don't go pet the tiger when we're out in the jungle. Fear is the reason why we say, wait a second, I'm a little close to that edge. I don't want to slip. Fear is a necessity to keep us alive, but it's also the thing that stops us from fully living. And so in this moment, we're going to not allow fear to take over the driver's seat. We're going to allow fear to still live in our lives. We're going to be able to acknowledge fear, but we're going to say, hey, today and every day moving forward, I will acknowledge you, but you don't get to drive this vehicle of life. You could sit next to me. You could be in the passenger seat next to me, but I'm in control. And how this plays out in our day-to-day lives is when we have a moment of fear, when we get on stage to give a presentation at work, and all of a sudden you get the butterflies, you get the sweats, and fear creeps in and tries talking in your ear, just as the passenger in your car always tries to let you know how to drive. It's going to tell you that you're not enough. It's going to tell you that maybe you should sit down and let somebody else lead this meeting. You're going to let fear know that you've got it. Thank you for trying to keep me safe, but I got it. I don't even need to know every bit of your history to know that you have gone through harder things than the ideas, the dreams, the ideas and projects that you have. You have gone through so many other harder things that prove to you that you could do the thing that you're thinking about doing. So I'm committed to doing this. I'm committed to stepping forward and making this a thing because I am no longer going to let fear be the driver in my life. You could sit next to me in the passenger seat, but I get to control the car. So what is the fear that it's time for you to acknowledge? What is the fear that continues to creep up in those quiet moments? Those moments where you get excited about an idea or a dream, and all of a sudden, that little voice kicks in the back of your head. Who is that fear? Name it. Is it Paul? The one that's always trying to make sure that you don't say too much, act out of line, hold yourself back. Make sure that it's not stopping you from doing the things that you know you should be doing. And that starts today. That starts by first acknowledging it. It starts by thanking it. Then it ends by letting it go. You and I, we have an amazing life to live. We have incredible things that are just waiting to be accomplished, sought after, discovered. And today we decide that we're going to live the life that goes toward those things. We're going to live the life that decides, I'm scared, but I'm doing it anyway. Fear's next to me, but it's not in control. Today is that day. So welcome to episode 1. Live it. Don't dream it. If this message meant anything to you, please message me on Instagram. I'm at Scott Tavlin. This will not be the last time we do this. Even when I'm scared, even when I'm nervous, even when I have no idea how it's going to turn out, the promise that I'm making you right now is that we will continue to move forward because you and I, we got so much left to give. And it's time we don't hold that back anymore. Thank you for hanging out for episode 1. Till next time.